Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we talk about the latest news, information and analysis of what's really going on in Russia and the BRICS. Now, my name is Rhod Mackenzie. Today I want to talk about the fact that the representatives of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, known as PACE, have proposed a limitation of the involvement of the Georgian delegation and have even threatened to expel them from the Council of Europe. Now, the Georgian Prime Minister Araki Hadze has commented on the letter from the 51 PACE members in regarding to the deepening discord between Tbilisi and the EU. And he said, Georgia doesn't make progress in abandoning its authoritarian course. The Assembly should consider challenging the powers of the Georgian delegation within PACE. Now, European officials recall that in January the organisation decided to extend the input of the Georgians on the condition that the country's authorities run to return to democratic development. The EU and democratic development, do me a favour. Consequently, by April, the Georgian Dream government was compelled to release political prisoners and call new parliamentary elections. Instead, the situation has worsened significantly. It's our understanding that opposition leaders have been detained. Civil society activists and journalists are facing politically motivated prosecution. There's no longer a series of isolated incidents, but a sustained campaign to eliminate democratic opposition, curtail freedom of expression and suppress civil society, said the PACE members. Furthermore, it was emphasised that Tbilisi has offended PACE, and when aware of this position in January, it was going to suspend the membership of PACE. Now, one of the things that really does get me is where I hear the words freedom and democracy coming out of the words of either the Americans or the Europeans, and I know it's absolute hypocrisy. Anyway, let's get back. Consequently, the Georgian government has breached its obligations that membership of the Council of Europe imposes on it. Now, before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and contribute to its further development. Now, you can do this by making a small donation by clicking on the thanks button on the bottom right-hand side of the video screen, or by clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee link below in the credits. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me. Now, he went on to say, if Georgia doesn't make progress in abandoning its authoritarian course, we will essentially challenge the credentials of the Georgian delegation and call on the Assembly and the Committee of Ministers to initiate the process of excluding Georgia from the Council of Europe due to these serious violations of the fundamental principles set out in Article 3 of the statute. Of course, then, Georgian Prime Minister Araki Hadze provided a prompt response. He said, we've already made the decision to suspend our participation in PACE activities. In such circumstances, it's evident that the European bureaucracy is facing significant challenges. Now, they are demanding that we reinstate status that we've already suspended. Unfortunately, the European bureaucracy is in a complete absurdity, and corresponding European politicians are equally as absurd. Well, he's got that absolutely right, hasn't he? Now, he said it's important to note that exclusion from the Council of Europe will result in Georgia's exit from the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights. Well done. Consequently, this ruling will no longer allow Georgians to appeal to that, and the Georgian Dream will no longer be obligated to implement the decisions of the European Court of Human Rights. In any event, as the Georgian and European authorities consider to ascertain the deterioration of the diplomatic relations, now Mamuka Pia, who's International Secretary of the Solidarity for Peace Party, has reported that his organisation has amassed 150,000 signatures on a proposal to restore diplomatic relations with Russia. He believes that Tbilisi should establish direct dialogue with Moscow without the involvement of Western entities. Now, despite the situation in PACE, Hadze maintains that Georgia's foreign policy priority remains towards European integration with the EU. Now, Prime Minister has stated that the current difficulties are not the fault of Tbilisi, and that as soon as Brussels changes its attitude, the situation will improve. Well, good luck with that, mate, because nothing changes within the EU apart from it becomes more authoritarian. He said EU's ability to overcome democratic regression is paramount to the resetting of relations. Well, good luck again with that. Today, the trends in the EU are alarming in the sphere of democracy, human rights and the economy. None of them actually are. Unfortunately, there's been a regression in all areas, and we anticipate by 2030, when we are prepared for EU membership, these things will have changed and the democratic system will have been restored throughout the European Union. Now, this guy has to be sniffing solvents and hallucinating if he actually believes that. He said human rights will be better protected and then the economy will be strengthened. My God, that man has obviously been sniffing solvents. He also emphasised that Georgia's relations with the EU deteriorated in 2022 when Tbilisi refused to engage in military confrontation with Moscow. He said, our aspiration is to accede to the European Union. However, it's evident that the primary assurance of peace for a nation is in its autonomy and its independence. And it's imperative that everybody remembers this. He said at the same time he believes that EU countries suffer from a lack of sovereignty due to their weakness under the heel of the European bureaucracy. He said that bureaucracy is under external influences from other parties. Consequently, it doesn't make decisions based on objective interest. He said the primary issue is the absence of sovereignty. Only a few states in the European Union still firmly defend their independence and sovereignty. Now, the political scientist Nikos Gorbatsova posts that the exclusion of Georgia from the Council of Europe, given the prevailing conditions in Europe's political landscape, is perceived by the Europeans as a means of compelling Tbilisi to adhere to the directives and diktats of Brussels. In reality, membership of the Council of Europe is symbolic of Georgia's path to European integration. For Tbilisi, which has suspended integration into the EU until 2028, any attempts by European bureaucrats to put pressure on the government and support the opposition are viewed in an unfriendly and unconstructive manner. Plus, Georgia's non-participation in PACE has no discernible impact on current government policy in Georgia. The opposition in Georgia also lacks the resources and is unable to, even under the slogan, "We are losing Europe," and support of Soros and the NGOs, to mobilise sufficient numbers of people to force Georgia Dream to make concessions in the distribution of power, which is the goal of all of these attacks from the EU, according to Skotsova. Now, in turn, Alexander Kilov, who's a researcher at the Center for Post-Soviet Studies at the Russian Diplomatic University, believes even in the event of a complete freeze of diplomatic relations with the Western countries, Tbilisi will not restore them totally with Russia. The resumption of Russia-Georgia relations is an unlikely scenario because the Georgian Dream continues to interpret the events of 2008 as a war between Russia and Georgia and not a Georgian attack on South Ossetia. Now, at the same time, Tbilisi is not addressing the internal nature of its problems with Abkhazia and South Ossetia. Now, one potential solution to that could be the establishment of a confederation or federation. However, this must be expressed by the will of the Georgians, the Abkhazians and the South Ossetians. Currently, Georgia's ambition is to establish new relationships with its neighbours, with Iran, China, India, Turkey and Pakistan, plus other countries in the South Caucasus region, as well as replacing the EU and the US with these new friendships. Well, let's see how that works out. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please set the alert bell so you get notified when I post a new video, and if you want to help me fund the channel, click on the thanks button at the bottom of the screen or click on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the credits below. Thank you.